Good afternoon, students. Today the topic is narrative essay. We have been telling stories among ourselves from Adam. The Hopi Indian proverb says that those who tell stories rule the world. So it is with narrative essay. Because we interact among ourselves and there are so many stories to tell. If anything at all, most Ghanaian students are aware of the famous Anansi and his son in Tikuma. What is narrative essay? This is a kind of essay that usually involves our experience and events. You can narrate the story as a participant. You can also narrate a story as an observer. So let me put these two important elements on the board. As we go through this topic, we shall be looking at the difference between being a participant and also being an observer. When you narrate your essay as a participant, it means you actively participate or involve in the story. In this case, the tense that you use involves the first person narration, and that tense is that noun, pronoun is the I. All of this reflects the fact that you are a participant in the narration. But if you narrate as an observer, it means that you do not actively participate in the story. You merely comment or give commentary on the story. And so your pronouns are different from the previous one. So you use pronouns such as so you see the difference in the pronouns. These are only but a few. Now, let us look at other elements of the narrative. Thesis statement is an important feature in all essay writing. What is a thesis statement? A thesis statement is the sentence that carries or controls the main idea in your paragraphs. So in developing your paragraphs, you must be mindful of the thesis statement. It should not be absent. Chronological order. This is about the time and the occurrence. Its sample tells us how the time is related to the occurrence of the events. So it must be logically presented in such a way that it will be understood. For example, when you are writing about a football match, you do not begin by writing about the aftermath of the match or the end scores before you write about the onset of the game. So the chronological order is very, very important. so that readers will understand your essay. In all this, narrative writing can broadly be described in two ways. Either it is true story or it is untrue story. If it's a true story, we call that one nonfiction. If it's not a true story, it is fiction. Now, what constitutes nonfiction? Nonfiction can be said to be biographies, autobiographies, histories, and report writing can all be non-fictions. Now, fiction. Fiction are all the imaginative writings or events. They are generally not true. So you see how you have to align yourselves to one or the other in each one of these essay, right? In narrative writing, it is always better to use transitional markers rather than adopting the point listing style. Transitional markers such as finally, as a result, more to the point, are better than opting for point listing style like first, second, third, fourth, because sometimes the narration does not allow itself to be itemized in this way. Let us now look at other special features of the narrative essay. Introduction occupies a very fundamental part in the narrative. In writing your narrative essay, you must introduce your essay. In writing, the characters and the setting are first established before you proceed to the conflict in the essay. That comes much later. Another aspect in the essay is to look at how the writer, or how you, being the writer, want to keep your viewers in the essay, reading and not stopping till the end. You do that by creating cliffhangers or suspense. What are cliffhangers or suspense? They are anxious moments in the essay that keeps the reader wondering what will happen next. You do that by so many techniques, and when you do it successfully, your reader keeps on reading till the last. Another important aspect in the narrative is the dialogue. What is a dialogue? A dialogue is a conversation between two characters. Well, it is not a mandatory feature in essay writing, but where you decide to use a dialogue, then you must observe three parts of it. 1. The dialogue must be used in a manner that everybody will understand that it is quoted. So you will have to put it in a quotation mark or an inverted comma. Apart from the inverted comma, which easily tells us that this is a quotation, you must also make sure that it does not involve just one character. So it must go more than just a character, or it must involve more than just a character. So you may have to use at least 2 characters at a time. And finally, the dialogue, the words used in the dialogue must be on their own, such that you can easily see that the first speaker is different from the second speaker. You do that by separating their speeches from each other, so that the first speaker occupies the first line or lines, and then the second speaker comes after. So you will separate the speakers, even if it is just a word that one character uses. Now let me just clear this and add more information. Let us look at another department in writing the narrative, and that is organization. How the writer organizes his essay adds to the beauty and excitement of the essay. The writer introduces his essay starting with the character and then the setting as set before he comes to the plot. Now when that is done, he goes on to add the plot where everything, all the actions come on board to play, and that is the plot. So in the plot, the main character either confronts a conflict that he needs to address or an event that he needs to negotiate. Having proceeded from this, the writer may now think of how to get to the conclusion stage of his essay. Here, the writer concludes the essay by looking at all the unloose ends before and try to tie them up at this stage. So he brings finality to the writer's emotions, sentiments, decisions, feelings, and desires to a logical conclusion. Now, let us look at what should be done in your exam when you are writing essay and what you should not do in writing your essay. You realize that throughout this exercise, we do not mention anything about animal characters. Animal characters do not generally feature in essay writing where it is for exam purpose. It is called fable or even allegory. These are the two aspects of essays that we read about, but we do not normally see them in our exam scripts. The reason being that animals actually do not speak for themselves, and you are not also required to speak on their behalf, at least for exam purposes. Again, you are also not supposed to use the present tense in the narrative unless you are supposed to write about an event that is happening instantaneously. Yeah. Instant. In this case, an example like football match, you may be required to give commentary just as it happens. But apart from a football match or any other happenings like that, the essay should strictly use the past tense. So the past tense tells you that you have experienced it and you are now writing about it. Since you cannot write about something you have not yet experienced, the past tense is always a choice in writing your narrative essay. As I said before, in writing your narrative essay, you are also not supposed to itemize your points in terms of numbers. For example, you are not supposed to use numbers like first, second, third. In this case, when you use that, it means you are packaging your ideas in such a manner that they do not depend on each other for understanding, but they need to interrelate in such a way that one paragraph necessarily leads on to another paragraph, and that is where we call for the transitional markers or transitional words. Now, let us look at certain prompts in writing the narrative. Having concluded everything, as I said, we are just looking at the general, having the general overview of the essay. Some of these do not align themselves to the essential features. That is why we are now coming to look at it in broad terms, so that we will appreciate it even better. Now, writing prompts number 1. What is this? Somebody may be asking, so what can be used for narrative essay and what should I avoid when writing narrative essay? Nearly everything can be used when writing narrative essay, provided that you can report or give details about it. So you can even write about fantasy, that is your imagination at work. You can decide to imagine for yourself a world where everything is possible. Since you are the grandmaster of the art, you can decide that you want to write about a world where anything that you wish for, you guess it. In writing about this, you are giving us your world, and that is under fantasy. Writing prompts number 2. Dystopian essay. In writing a dystopian essay, you can take us back to history and tell us exactly what a decision cost people so many years after. Or you can take us into the future and tell us what a decision resulted so many years before it. So that is about a dystopian essay. Mystery. You can also narrate about a mystery. In this case, you can write, for example, about a situation where astronauts or space travelers travel to space with about 8 people, but when they return, they came with only 7. All the 7 have lost memory of the last person, the 8th person. They do not remember anything about the 8th person, and the people in the world expected to welcome them to do not have any clue about what has happened to the 8th person. So that is a mystery. Science fiction is also possible. We can write about it. For example, you can set your narrative in the 18th century where mobile phones were not possible. But in your story, someone is complaining about the loss of his mobile phone and all the problems associated with that particular loss. In that case, it is science fiction, since it is not possible to have had a mobile phone at that time. Others may refer to that as anachronism. That is where you refer to an item at a time it was not present at that time. For example, you may even talk about Julius Caesar and time. At his time, there was no clock. But when you refer to that and talk about his clock, that is struck 3 before he took a particular decision or action, it means that is science fiction, because it is not possible at that time. So students, having taken you through all this, you are now in a pool of options to choose whichever narrative essay you want to have yours from. In conclusion, we've seen that narrative essay is something that we experience almost every day. You will need to read a lot to acquire more vocabulary, to experience so many things, to be able to write, and write in the manner of the authors that you want to always read about. So until I come your way another time, this is until I let me give you an exercise, and then we will call it quits for today. Right? You may just have to do the following for me.
Yes, right.
So this is your assignment. And you need to submit it to me on this line. And you will certainly get your feedback. Until I come your way next time, this is the end of the lesson. Yeah. So the question is, you have just escaped from a kidnapping spree. Narrate how that was possible. It is just a simple question, and I hope everybody can just do this. So until I come your way next time, I hope you will enjoy the lesson at your various homes. Bye bye.